What if the real impact of this possible trade was not in Milwaukee, but in Boston? The season moves forward, the trade deadline gets closer, and the atmosphere in Milwaukee no longer hides the sense of desperation. A losing record, the injury to Giannis Antetokounmpo, and the feeling that the project has lost its direction create a suffocating scenario. But could this Bucks rush for another star end up opening a dangerous door for the Boston Celtics? The numbers do not lie. 11 wins, 17 losses, and an uncomfortable distance even from the play-in. For a franchise built entirely around Giannis, that sounds like a maximum alert. And then the unexpected happened. Reports began to circulate that Antetokounmpo himself was pressuring the front office for aggressive moves, not to leave now, but to find out if there is still any real chance to compete. The name at the center of this story, Zach LaVine, an explosive scorer, a two-time All-Star, capable of deciding games on his own. Chris Haynes went straight to the point by stating that the Bucks are desperately searching for a player who can change the team's level. There is no concrete offer yet, but LaVine is on the radar, and when Giannis applies pressure, Milwaukee usually reacts. Now LaVine appears as another heavy gamble, and this is where the danger lives. Sacramento did not take the expected leap, even with LaVine in a central role. Points were there, but wins were not. That raises an uncomfortable question. Is the Bucks' problem a lack of offensive talent, or a poorly fitted roster that is expensive and short on defensive energy? And this is exactly where the Boston Celtics enter the equation. Boston watches everything in silence. Every desperate choice made by Milwaukee has direct consequences in the East. If the Bucks sacrifice more young players, more picks, more flexibility, they become even more dependent on an overloaded Giannis. For the Celtics, that means a rival that looks powerful on paper, but increasingly fragile in its construction. What nobody expected was that a possible trade for LaVine could weaken Milwaukee in the medium term. A heavy contract, little room for adjustment, and an unbalanced roster. Meanwhile, Boston keeps its core intact, controls contracts, protects assets, and thinks 2 steps ahead. The new NBA trade market is officially open, not because major bombs have already exploded, but because quietly the pieces have started to move. Contracts are now eligible, phones are starting to ring, and for the first time in years, there is a real feeling that the Celtics could actually be active before the deadline. But could this movement end up costing more than it brings back? Boston finds itself facing a dangerous dilemma. On one side, financial pressure. Cutting around $12 million in salary would push the team below the luxury tax and start an important process to avoid heavy penalties in the future. On the other, competitive ambition. This roster has clearly shown it can still compete at a high level. The question is simple but uncomfortable. Is it worth sacrificing a functional piece now just to ease the payroll? This is where Sam Hauser enters the center of the discussion. What nobody expected was to see Hauser emerge as the most mentioned Celtics name in recent trade ranking. Not because he is a star, not because he would bring back a big package, but exactly for the opposite reason. According to market evaluation, his value is basically limited to second-round picks. No promising young player, no immediate impact, just financial relief. But does that really make sense? Hauser is clearly having the worst season of his professional career. Just 34% from 3 on nearly 6 attempts per game. For the first time, he is below the 41% mark that has always defined his profile. And then the unexpected happened. Right at his lowest technical point, the idea of trading him suddenly appears. Trading Hauser now does not make the Celtics better. It only makes the roster cheaper. And that is the most delicate point in this entire conversation. Boston would not be fixing an on-court problem. It would be fixing a spreadsheet. And here comes a perspective few want to admit. Hauser's contract is friendly, controllable. It allows room for error. It gives time for recovery. And most importantly, it occupies a strategic salary space between 10 and 12 million. A valuable slot, flexible, capable of enabling something much bigger in the future. Would you keep Hauser with the future in mind, or would you hit the panic button to ease the payroll right now? Let me know in the comments. With the NBA trade deadline approaching fast, one name is once again circulating like a dangerous whisper behind the scenes. Anthony Davis, a player who has been linked to the Celtics before, but who now emerges again as a real possibility. But would this move be brilliant or a mistake that could cost years of planning? The rumors are clear. The Dallas Mavericks would be willing to listen to offers for Davis. The logic behind it is bold. Dallas wants to turn the page, build everything around Cooper Flag. Keep Kyrie Irving as the veteran guide of this new project. And then the unexpected happened. One of the greatest defensive talents of the last decade could be available. Teams like the Raptors and Pistons have already shown interest. In the East, almost every franchise sees AD as a shortcut to the playoffs, or something even bigger. But when the conversation reaches Boston, the debate changes tone. It becomes more tense, more complex. Jay King, a respected Celtics insider, decided to slow things down and analyze the scenario with a cold eye. And the first obstacle is not on the court, it is in the contract. Anthony Davis is making over $54 million this season. He also holds a player option close to $63 million for 2027. Now stop and think. If Davis, Jayson Tatum, and Jaylen Brown share the roster next season, the three of them alone would account for roughly $174 million in salary. That represents more than 96% of the projected cap. But can a team survive like that? Anthony Davis is still dominant when he is on the floor. The numbers back it up. Nearly 20 points per game, more than 10 rebounds, real defensive impact with blocks and steals. He would clearly improve the Celtics' biggest weakness right now, the interior. But what nobody expected was the weight of the risk involved. Davis has an extensive injury history, repetitive, and he will be 33 years old very soon. Jay King went straight to the point by raising a question many avoid. Tatum is still recovering from a serious Achilles injury. Going all in on another star with major health concerns does not sound like a sustainable build. Would you make this bet on Anthony Davis, or would you rather see Boston take a different path? Let me know in the comment, because this debate is far from over. What if a seemingly simple trade in the West was hiding a domino effect capable of directly hitting the Boston Celtics? The market is starting to heat up, the back channels are buzzing, and an under-the-radar name suddenly sits at the center of the conversation. Keon Ellis, a 3 and defense, an explicit target of the Los Angeles Lakers. But does this negotiation stop at Sacramento and Los Angeles, or is there a silent risk for Boston in this story? The Kings have already made their price clear, a protected first-round pick. Nothing outrageous, nothing that would scare a franchise desperate for perimeter defense. Ellis is only 25 years old, shoots over 40% from 3 for his career, and has built a reputation as an aggressive point-of-attack defender. What nobody expected was that this relatively modest price could attract multiple teams at the same time. The Lakers are desperately hunting for defensive wing. Their defense ranks only 22nd in the league. Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves, and LeBron James form a talented but vulnerable trio. Reeves in particular has been targeted, possession after possession. JJ Redick has already called meeting, asked for more effort, asked for adjustment. But effort does not create size or lateral quickness. Ellis appears as a low-cost solution. But does he really solve the problem? Scouts are split. Some see a specialist in generating turnover, active hands, strong passing lane instincts. Others raise serious concerns about his size and his ability to hold up against bigger guards. One evaluator even called him the most divisive player in the league. And then the unexpected happened. Despite those doubts, the interest kept growing. If Ellis ends up in Los Angeles, it is not just a boost for the Lakers. It is a clear signal that the market is willing to pay a premium for this profile. The Celtics could miss the chance to act early and end up fighting over inflated leftovers near the deadline. What nobody expected was that a secondary name could redefine the pace of the trade market. The central question is not whether Keon Ellis is worth a first-round pick. The real question is different. Can the Celtics afford to ignore this move and hope prices do not rise? Will Boston watch in silence, or will it move early before the market spirals out of control? Do you think the Celtics should enter this race for defensive wings now, or trust that the current roster is enough to make a deep playoff run? Let me know in the comments.